What if 2026 isn't just another year on the calendar, but the year nature finally fights back? When there is the first breaking up of some conditions in the South Sea, and those as apparent in the Mediterranean and the Etna area, then we may know it has begun. Edgar Cayce, reading 311-8 ARE. Hey friend, okay, deep breath. The internet loves a scary headline, especially when it name drops Edgar Cayce and a dramatic year like 2026. So tonight, we're sorting signal from noise. What did Cayce actually foresee about nature's upheavals? And what does 2026 really hold in the sky and on the ground? Here's the setup. March 20th, 2026. It's the March equinox, one of those tidy cosmic milestones that always get people talking. And throughout 2026, you'll hear buzz about eye-catching planet parades and a still spicy sun finishing its solar cycle 25 peakish phase. Translation: but let's do this the right way. We'll pull the real Cayce readings, then cross-check them with hard science USGS earthquake guidance, NASA and NOAA space weather outlooks, and the IPCC's best evidence on extreme events. Along the way, we'll visit to mind-blowing time capsules, the Antikythera mechanism, a 2,000-year-old sky computer, and the ash-frozen city of Akrotiri on Santorini, proof that nature's temper can reshape history in a day. By the end, you'll know which warnings are legend, which are measurable risks, and the surprising way 2026 might be less about fate and more about choice. Ready to see what Cayce may have sensed stand what the data actually says? Legends of nature's rethoth cross the world, from icy fjords to desert mesas. Ancient cultures left us stories of the sky darkening, seas rising, or fire swallowing the land. Think about it. The Norse Ragnarok described a twilight of the gods, where the earth quakes, the seas boil, and even the sun is swallowed before a new world emerges. In the Hopi prophecies, we hear of a great purification fire, floods, and upheaval before the next world cycle begins. And of course, nearly every culture has its great flood myth, whether it's Noah in the Bible, Utnapishtim in the Mesopotamian, Epic of Gilgamesh, or Manu in ancient Hindu texts. Now here's where it gets spooky. Although these myths were written oceans apart, they rhyme with each other. They all speak of cyclical destruction followed by renewal. And here's the kicker. Cayce's readings often echoed the same theme. Earth isn't static. It changes violently, sometimes suddenly, and humanity needs to be ready. So before we get into his specific earth changes, let's hold this thought. Ancient mythologies may not be predicting our doom, but they could be reminders that civilizations before us saw nature's wrath firsthand. Cayce's earth changes when Edgar Cayce went into his deep trance-like readings. He often spoke about massive earth changes, the kind that could redraw entire maps. And remember, this was the early 20th century. No climate change talk on the news. No satellites, no NASA, no global warming buzzwords. Yet Cayce described scenarios that sound shockingly modern. He warned of shifting coastlines with parts of North America, sinking and new land rising in the Atlantic, violent weather and earthquakes, particularly in places like California, Japan, and the Mediterranean, a magnetic pole shift hinting that Earth itself could flip in a geologic instant. In one famous reading, he said, "There will be upheavals in the Arctic and Antarctic that will make for the eruption of volcanoes. In the torrid areas, shifting again of the poles." And here's another wild detail: he gave timelines. Cayce hinted that many of these earth changes would intensify in the 21st century, pointing specifically to the period between 2015 and 2030 as crucial. And if we're honest, hasn't the last decade already felt like nature's warning shots? So, was he just lucky with vague predictions? Or was Cayce tapping into a cycle of change that both ancient myths and modern science agree is real? Science catches up, okay. Let's step back from prophecy for a second and look at what modern science is actually saying. Because here's the twist. Cayce's warnings about Earth changes don't sound so far-fetched anymore. Take climate science. The UN's IPCC reports point to stronger hurricanes, more intense floods, and record-breaking heat waves all happening right now. Coastal cities like Miami, Jakarta, and Venice are literally sinking, while glaciers in Greenland and Antarctica are melting at unprecedented speeds. Then there's the issue of the magnetic poles. Did you know Earth's magnetic north isn't fixed? It's been drifting rapidly from Canada toward Siberia so fast. Scientists had to update navigation maps ahead of schedule in 2019, and studies show Earth's poles have flipped multiple times in history. Imagine what a sudden shift would mean for satellites, power grids, even migratory animals, and earthquakes. Japan, Turkey, and the Pacific Ring of Fire have all been rattled by devastating quakes in just the last few decades. Cayce specifically highlighted these zones as vulnerable, and science confirms they're sitting on some of the world's most dangerous fault lines. Here's the spooky alignment. Cayce said nature's upheavals weren't random punishments. They were part of a larger cycle of cleansing and renewal. And as dramatic as that sounds, it brings us to the big question: what's waiting for us in 2026? 2026. The cycle of renewal. Now here's where things really get goosebump-y. Cayce didn't just talk vaguely about the future, he hinted at a period when these earth changes would reach a turning point. And many researchers of his work point to the mid-2020s, especially the year 2026, as a critical marker. Why? Cayce spoke of a time when humanity would face nature's rebellion, but also the chance for a spiritual awakening. He suggested that disasters weren't the end, but a reset. Like how a forest fire clears dead wood so new growth can thrive, Cayce believed nature's upheavals could clear the path for a new chapter of human evolution. And here's where things line up in a mind-blowing way. In 2026, astronomers predict unusual planetary alignments, sevenths, ancient civilizations often associated with great transitions. Climate scientists warn the 2020s are a make-or-break decade for Earth's systems, and spiritually. Many people feel we're already in an age of awakening, questioning old systems, seeking higher truths, and reconnecting with ancient wisdom. Then drop the wow factor, the idea that disaster and renewal aren't opposites, they're partners. What if 2026 is less about the end of the world and more about the world beginning again? So let's step back for a second. We started with ancient legends, floods, fire, and cycles of renewal. Then we saw how Cayce's prophecies echoed those same patterns, predicting upheavals in the earth, the seas, and even the poles. Finally, we connected it all to modern science, which is now confirming shifts in climate, rising seas, and magnetic anomalies that Cayce somehow foresaw nearly a century ago. And now, as the calendar ticks closer to 2026, we're left with a haunting but fascinating question: was Edgar Cayce truly glimpsing our future? Or was he simply reminding us of a natural cycle humanity has forgotten, one where destruction is just the doorway to renewal? Because here's the thing, whether prophecy or science, one truth is hard to ignore: nature always has the last word. But what do you think? Is 2026 really the year of nature's wrath? Or could it be the year we finally wake up and change course? Drop your thoughts in the comments side. Love to hear your take. And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive into prophecy, science, and ancient mysteries, make sure you hit subscribe, smash that like button, and maybe even share this with a friend who loves exploring the unknown. And if you're ready for your next mind-bending journey, you might want to check out my video on planetary alignments and the secrets they hold in ancient civilizations. It's a perfect mashup because one thing's for sure: the past isn't just history. It's a warning, a clue, and sometimes a prophecy.